Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Sharlee Dixon, and joining me today is Peter Fenger. Hi, Peter.
Hey, Sharlee. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. Welcome back to another BHT Bytes episode where we break down mental health and societal trends into quick, digestible conversations, keeping things informative, relaxed, and relevant. As I began to think about what topics were really hitting the mainstream and causing a bit of tension, I listened to my coworkers and family members discuss something that often affects everyone, from teenagers to older people, in similar ways: weight loss, and diet culture. I don't know one person that I have spoken with throughout my life that hasn't mentioned their weight or the weight of someone they knew, whether it was an admiration for someone's size or how they wore that outfit, or whether it was in unfavorable terms. Growing up in the 80s and early 90s, diets and the control of what we ate was everywhere. You could not turn on the TV without seeing a commercial for products or programs designed for weight loss. Advertisements for things like Slim Fast and Weight Watchers were the norm. The idea of diet culture began even earlier than that, with the belief that thin equals healthy, that the control of one's diet or food restriction is the ultimate goal. It is the goal to be as thin and as beautiful as possible. While generally thinner folks do experience less health concerns, mental health is often not a factor in that discussion. Everything changed in the mid-90s with the emergence of body positivity and then fat visibility movements. What began as a fight against workplace harassment and medical stereotyping based on size evolved into calls for larger inclusion and representation of all body shapes, sizes, and disabilities. Social media intensified the fight towards inclusion and positivity centered on loving one's body no matter the size. Celebrities like Lizzo and supermodels like Ashley Graham brought an attractive and often polarizing positive image to these ideas. Diet culture can and has affected us all in all kinds of ways. Negative body or self-image. Just imagine if your specific body is never broadcast in the media or online as being desirable or even as being wrong. Disordered eating. So for some, making healthier eating choices is inherent. It's easy to do and comes naturally. But for others, the pursuit towards a thinner body can intensify and lead to eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia. And then let's not forget other mental health concerns such as depression, anxiety, intrusive thoughts, and even emotional dysregulation. In more recent years, the rise of GLP-1 weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound have sparked intense debate, hope, and some level of concern. Originally developed for diabetics, these medications are now reshaping not just bodies, but cultural narratives around health, weight, and identity. They're being held as revolutionary tools to fight obesity, reduce appetite, and restore confidence. But they're also raising deep questions. How do these drugs affect our mental and emotional well-being? What happens when society starts prescribing identity change in a syringe? And what role should psychologists and other behavioral health professionals play in helping people navigate these dramatic physical and psychological shifts? Today, we unpack the science, the stigma, and the story behind the GLP-1 era. So I think it's important to note that GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide 1 is a naturally occurring gut hormone that your body releases after eating. So GLP-1 medications that we're discussing kind of mimic those effects and have been proven to be a very powerful tool in managing blood sugar. Hence why they were used for diabetics originally. Yeah. So my concern when I originally heard about where these drugs came from is that because they mimic that naturally occurring hormone, for many people, you may have to even remain on these types of drugs for extended periods of time because now your body no longer makes them.
Right.
And so then the concern isn't just that now I can lose weight, now I can feel better, but then maybe you're on these types of drugs for an extended period of time. And I don't know that type of discussion has really been had with people.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think these GLP-1 drugs really reveal about our culture's relationship with weight and wellness? So like I said, mentioning that drugs may be something that you're going to be on for the lifetime, like your entire
Mhm.
life. Now you have to continue to use a drug just to stay the same size that you want to be. That's a little scary for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
little scary.
it is kind of interesting because the way that I hear this drug being discussed, I guess, with conversations with my doctor, and the way that I see it advertised is almost polarized
Mm,
because the way that you're describing it and the way that I'm understanding its intention is that it is for people that one are dealing with obesity or
mhm.
diabetes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're looking for a solution. So it's sort of like you have to have sort of a almost clinical diagnosis in order to get it
Mhm.
on. But the way that it's being advertised is that anybody slightly overweight could use it as a way to just do weight loss.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is the pitfall of all of this is that because it is a quick solution, there
Mhm.
has to be no behavior modification.
Mhm.
And so the same pitfalls that I've seen other folks in my life kind of go through where they've joined Weight Watchers and by the end
Mhm.
of that system, they fall into the same thing of I didn't change my diet and therefore I balloon back up. Right.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I guess I don't believe that there is any sort of program you're talking about. Like once I start this program with GLP-1, that my body's going to adapt to this and I'm actually going to have to keep taking it because my
Mhm.
body has stopped producing those hormones
Mhm.
organically.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you preparing for a licensure exam in psychology, social work, marriage and family therapy, counseling, or behavioral analysis? AATBS is here to help. We have been supporting behavioral and mental health students to prepare for their licensure exams for more than 45 years, working with over 1 million students to succeed on test day and move on to the next step in their career. With products ranging from comprehensive courses to quiz banks and delivered live online, self-study online, and in print, AATBS has test prep solutions that meet every student's needs and learning styles. Visit us today at aatbs.com. That's aatbs.com and use promo code BHT15 to save 15% off your next purchase.
Absolutely. And that's really a piece of it that I don't think is really discussed.
Mhm.
I've spoken with my doctor about it. I've
Sure.
got family and friends who use variations of GLP-1s, and what they say is like, this is awesome. Again, it turns off the food noise. They no longer think about food all the time. It is managing their blood sugar, so it is working for what it's
Yes.
supposed to work for. But if those lifestyle changes don't occur, if you don't learn how to eat smaller portions or more protein and more fiber, and do the real work behind it, it should be used as a tool, not as the whole system, the whole program, and that's all that you do. Because again, if you ever get off of it, the weight comes back if you don't change how you live your life.
Right. And I think it also kind of leads into some of the cultures that we have around pharmaceuticals as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if GLP-1 is covered by insurance,
Mm.
but I know that if I had a solution that means that I didn't have to pay out of pocket, like if I did go on a diet program, Weight Watchers or something like that, and I could just take a drug and
Mhm.
my problems go away,
Yeah.
creates an environment where you're not actually having to look at your behavior in order to create the desired change that you're looking for.
Absolutely, because it is advertised as a quick, you can do this, everybody can pay for this, which is
Right.
a whole nother level. Because like you mentioned, some insurances do cover it for
Mhm.
certain things. So the insurance that I have would cover different types of GLP-1s if you are considered a diabetic, if your A1C is high enough. It even
Right.
now can be prescribed for sleep apnea, because once you lose weight, then your apnea goes away.
Right.
But on the other side of that, they also, you can go to these online pharmacies and pay hundreds of dollars a month, and they just mail it to your house. And
Mm,
so it is marketed in multiple different types of ways, which again leads to that unscary uncertainty because your doctor will follow you when you're taking your drugs. But a lot of times when you're getting them from an online pharmacy, there is not that level of follow-up. And
right.
in either situation, there isn't really any mental health follow-up or psychological. Let's talk about what that food noise means to you. Where did the
Right.
food noise come from? How do you think you can
Yes.
manage the food noise on your own? Like
Mm,
when you stop this. And even speaking about it on a long-term basis and using any type of drug, in my opinion, you really have to think about what the cost of that is. Not necessarily the financial cost to it, but what is the cost to your body? I mean,
yes.
side effects from GLP-1s just from taking a small dose. I mean, it could be anything from just mild discomfort at your injection site to
Hmm.
hair loss and extreme fatigue and vomiting and dizziness and even in some cases kidney failure and pancreatitis. So the side effects can be huge, and then we're not necessarily even being some people aren't being followed medically to even address those types of concerns. And then over
Yes.
long term, what happens to people on a long term basis? Like in
Right.
10 years, is it going to be like those mesothelioma type commercials? Like what will happen next? And so it is a lot of uncertainty that I'm sure over time we'll figure it out. But there's a lot of uncertainty right now about the use of the drugs. And then my concern is what culturally that says about us, that we're just going to jump on this next band wave of, this diet culture thing for today.
Yes.
And, what does that say about us?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a couple thoughts. First off, I think you're nailing it on the head. I don't know how much follow through comes through this.
Hmm.
Same thing again with some of the diet systems.
Yeah.
Because it's designed so that you stay within the system, there is no exit strategy.
Mm.
And even talking about this, yeah, you can start it super easy to start, insurance will pay for it, really easy, to ramp up. You see results, that's great. But then
Yeah.
you talk about how do you exit that?
Hmm.
Do you go through this and you just get a diet of malnutrition because you haven't
Mm.
figured out like what your body actually wants? Like part of my navigation into my 40s is trying to understand what my body needs now at 40
Mm.
than what I ate at 20.
Oh yeah.
And that's been a tough learning curve,
Hmm.
but I'm better for it.
Yeah.
And I also think like we're part of in this culture right now in food to where we don't necessarily get the best fuel. It's fast, it's quick,
Hmm.
it's done
Hmm.
cheaply.
Yeah.
And doesn't really lead to good nutrition, even when we don't have access to the drugs, right?
Yeah.
And so, we've got a lot of things that are sort of working against us. We've got a drug system that wants to keep us in. We've got
Yep.
a food system that doesn't want to give us the nutrition we're needed. So it
Yeah.
almost doesn't really hit the source of the problem. I'm also going to amplify that, some of these weight loss drugs promote this false reality that like thin is healthy.
Hmm.
And that just ripples through other younger cultures that are trying to deal with
Absolutely.
their own body changes.
Absolutely.
But you have a number of these systems that are sort of working against you, and I don't think it really addresses the real problem, which at the end of it is your body is changing. We need to get
Hmm.
comfortable with that. What does your body need now? And
Yeah.
how might we better look at our nutrition and sort of rediscover it in a different way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I think that that's where the cohesion between that physical health and
Mhm.
then that mental health should be like it should be a component together. So when I
Right.
do believe that someone should see like a behavioral health therapist before, during, and after, or however you do that with the use of the drugs, because it isn't just a simple I lost weight and now everything's perfect. It
Right.
doesn't really work like that.
Right.
As I was really thinking about this and talking to other people about their experiences with the weight loss drugs, they all pretty much say the same. Like, I do feel much better now. I do have much more energy now. I feel better. Like, I look better in my clothes. But at the same time, they said, I'm kind of tired of hearing people say to me that I've lost too much weight, Or now I don't know, like it feels uncomfortable for me to be in some social situations because I know in American culture, every event that you have is like centered around food, right?
Yes.
So I don't know, everything I can think of, graduation party, food and cake,
Mhm.
wedding, food and cake, even sad things like funerals, food and cake. And so just trying to navigate, what do I feel about myself in these situations? How do I navigate that food noise like we've talked about? How do I navigate that food noise in every situation? How do I
Mm.
remain in control of those things, but at the same time also eat as healthy as I possibly can? And again,
Mhm.
figuring out in my 40s, I'm there too, figuring out what works for me now and how can I grow into that going forward, and not
Right.
just, I'm going to take this drug, I feel better, but then what about my mental state? Like there are so many bits and pieces that can go into weight loss, whether it's from going to the gym and eating
Sure.
healthy, or it's from weight loss surgery or whatever it is. There's so many different pieces that go into your mindset after a large weight loss that I don't think are being addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a really good conversation with I forget her name, but she was a behavioral analyst and she was working on a weight loss app that specifically targeted your behaviors and feelings around food. And I would be very curious to hear about how maybe that app might pair well with this, or
Mhm.
even just thoughts around GLP-1 from a BCBA. I just think it's very interesting to have all of this happen without maybe like the role of a psychologist to kind of come around
Yeah.
and sort of navigate some of the emotional aspects of these changes,
Absolutely.
because those extra perspectives can give you a better way of care for yourself on the other side of this process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not just that, just how to really work with yourself as you're navigating life differently.
Hmm.
Especially for those folks who may have been in larger bodies for, most of their lives, then they lose
Hmm.
a ton of weight. The world experiences you different, whether we want to really admit that or not. Society looks
Yes.
at us differently when our bodies look different. They just
Mhm.
do. When you can shop in the non-plus size section of a store. Like that is a real different, like it's a change, not just in how society sees you, but in how you experience the world too. So again, I will echo just that, making sure that folks are really looking into their mental health state as they're going into it, while they're doing it, making sure that they're addressing any levels of trauma or discomfort or stigma or anything that comes up for you as you are losing a large amount of weight. Things are going to come up. And so being able
Mhm.
to address them so that it doesn't lead to, once you're off the drugs, you are back to where you started. Because I think that is even the
Yes.
bigger, mental shift, to go from big to small till you're back
Sure.
at, that larger size again. So really
Yeah.
making sure that we address our mental health as you go through all of it.
There are a lot of ways to get people to transform. This drug is
Mhm.
ultimately an opportunity for people to transform their lives in a
Yeah,
different way, right?
absolutely.
And I guess the question you're posing is how do you want to make meaning of that transition?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really just finding that balance, I guess,
Hmm.
between how you want to present yourself to the world physically and then
Hmm.
how you need to show up for yourself mentally too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, diet culture and weight management are both social constructs with mental and physical health implications. Maintaining a healthy weight can be challenging for so many of us, and giving medication and other forms of weight loss, a persistent presence in society. GLP-1 medications are changing lives, but not always in the way we expect. For some, they provide physical relief and emotional clarity. For others, they spark new challenges around mood, identity, relationships, and stigma. What's clear is that these medications are not just medical, they're cultural as well. And without psychological insight and support, we risk missing the bigger picture, that wellness is more than weight and health is more than numbers. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of BHT Bytes, and we'll see you next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.